Good morning, students. Today we would be starting with chapter 1 of communications. So when we are talking about communication, when we define communication, communication is a process where it is between two or various people where we share our ideas, views, we give our presentability and what message we want to pass, we convey it accordingly. So communication is a two-way process. Fine. We have listener and speaker too. So accordingly it goes on. So when we are talking about the definition of communication, it's the process of exchanging ideas and information. So we can work it out accordingly. So what we want to tell, communicate and pass the message can be accordingly worked out. Fine. And when we are telling, how does it help? It helps us in expressing our views, our ideas, the message that we want to pass. And I think without communication, we cannot. Can we just imagine if there was no communication, how would we talk? Not only talk, I would say. If there was no communication, how would we express ourselves? How would we present our ideas? How would we give our thoughts? How would we do it? When we talk accordingly, we would proceed further that how it went on. When we are talking again about communication, there are many ways of communication which can happen without speaking. So when we look into people who are dumb, even they share their ideas, they express their ideas, they present their thoughts. How do they do it? Fine. So this further even we would be learning. And then when we are looking into, in our day-to-day life, communication involves 7% of us words spoken and 55% body language. So when we are talking 7% words and for 55% of body language, because many things are not expressed but understood. So that is through the body language that we understand. That is how, when they say silence, sometimes even silence speaks louder than words. So words are used as 7% and 55% is the body language, and accordingly it is worked out. Okay, when we are talking about communication we had, today that we are talking, we have so many technologies with us. Apart from words, talking, we have our modern technologies, various ways of communication. But when we go to the early time, the early days, how was communication? Even they communicated. How are we able to know the ancient history? From the Stone Age time till now, from the nomads, Stone Age time till now, how are we able to know? It is they too have communicated in various ways. Africans, how did we specify, how did we know? It is through this history that we could help it out. Fine. So when we are talking about early communication, in early times, communication was made mainly when we look into early times. Early times it was through sounds and gestures. sounds and gestures, and they understood well. Sounds like drum beating, they used to maw, they used to make various sounds to pass it to people from one place to other, and people understood the meaning that okay, some trouble is coming or something good is happening. So the drums and the sounds actually helped in explaining those things. So when we are talking about painting on the walls, it was through painting on the walls, fine, painting on the walls, and that is on in the caves. In the caves they had the paintings done. So even today when we see people get like when they are doing the research and analysis about the ancient history, archaeologists and others, when they get into various caves and various different places, now as we are talking about over here, a small example I would take is our near place Nargad. When people, even we want to know the ancient history of our kings and how did this place exist and other things, we get into this such places, the caves there, the monuments that are made, we try to learn the paintings and other things over there, and this is how that it was started. They present their ideas in such a way. And when we are talking about in the ancient times, there were signs and symbols that were used. The signs and symbols, like symbols, various symbols indicate various things. So when we are looking into the nomad culture, when was studied from the caves and other paintings, they have mentioned many things through the symbols that they make. Sometimes we find bulls, foxes, animals with weapons and all this. So they were trying to pass some messages through those symbols, painting form or rock carving. They used to do carving way of communication. So it is petroglyphs, and it is more than 1,000 years. It's more than 1,000 years ago that this was practiced. More than 1,000 years ago that this was practiced, and these are the important form of pre-writing. When we saw, there were many things in the caves and other things which were written, that is written in the form of symbols, paintings, and that was done. This was the first way of communication that went on. Then further when we are talking about, we had pecking. Second form was pecking in these olden days itself. In the ancient times, we had the second form, which is pecking. When we are talking about pecking, this method is stone carving method, which we say the Stone Age time. Otherwise, if they shouldn't have left this communication symbols and those carvings, I think we couldn't have learnt about our ancients, about our history, the Stone Age time, the ancient time, the BC. It should have become tough for us to understand. Fine. Then, in this carving, the sharp tools, fine, in the pecking method, which is second pecking, in the pecking method, the stone carving in this, the sharp stones were the tools. Even they did the stone carving with, for fire even if we say, they used was stone. For carving they used was stone. So anything that they wanted to communicate, stone was again, so that is pecking. Fine. So the second way of communication was pecking. Ideogram, in this they used to, through idols, the symbols of idols were made, and idols again the carving was done Even painting was done of the ideogram. The carving was done was as said stones, and when we are talking about the painting part, the best example we could say is today the traffic signals, the paintings and other things on the road, and even other many places we find a boy walking. So again that is shown that zebra crossing we have to do the walking part in this. And if we see when it is school zone, in that school zone again we have the bag and other things, that yes, a child, a boy or a child walking with the bag. So that is understood, this is a school zone. So that is how the security and other things are even mentioned. So today's time we are looking into, in modern times the traffic symbols are again the same of ideogram. Ideogram was again 10,000 years back, which was found by our ancients. They used to do this painting accordingly, and ideogram was mentioned through idols. Most interesting, I would say, years back that is found, and till today that we are using it, drums. Don't you think drums from the ancient time till now, it's one of the best invention which has made our life interesting. We can beat drums to express our happiness and sadness both. Even earlier, in early times, they used to use drums, beating the drums to pass messages far away from their place, from miles away, kilometers away, where the people are staying. They want to make them cautious what is happening, any danger or any happiness or any sadness. They expressed it through beating the drums, and the way the drum is beat, the music made them understand. That was again a mode of communication that people understood that yes, something good, so it's a time to celebrate, or something, some danger zone is being explained through drums, and or sadness, the drum again beat accordingly that yes, something bad has happened, something worst has happened. So accordingly they used to, the West Africans, among the West Africans, West Africa, it started, and then it was expanded throughout America and the Caribbean region. Fine. So when we are talking about Africans had first started this drum beating, they used to pass messages. Even today that they use it because that's the ancient culture. They yet respect and worship their culture. The drum beating is yet on, and then it was among the Americans, and that time when we are talking, Americans even communicated through this drum method. When we call the Red Indians of America, they had again this, the Caribbean. So this culture of drum beating, and I think today even we Indians, like many places throughout India, for both happiness and sadness. Fine. Then further when we are taking, again one of the old ways that today we call it, we have the courier method or Swiggy, Zomato and all has started, but earlier they had the Pony Express. Fine, it sounds interesting, the name Pony. When we are talking, it is understood. When it is Pony Express, it is something related to horse. So, in Pony Express, when we were telling about that time, Pony Express, how did they communicate? So, door-to-door delivery was done. It is not that 10,000 years ago. It is in the later part, I think 1000 BCs ago that this was happening. Find the Pony Express. So, a man used to deliver on horse from one city to other, because that time even when we call, today we have colonies and from one place to other, this street to that street, from this city to that city. That time again it was miles ago that they had to travel, so it was city that we would call it. Fine, so from one place to other, and they had is a man used to deliver it. As I said, it is sharing of ideas, thoughts, and in different ways. So, best part was rock painting. Rock painting was in earlier those days that the rock painting started, and that's how it was used. Okay, in early days, the documentation and other things, they did not have much. How would they do it? So they used to have it through rock painting. They used to mention what they wanted to express, any danger or anything. When they wanted to talk to their people, inform their people, how do they do it? They used to leave it through rock painting, so that people could understand it, read it. Suppose like today, if our parents or someone in the family has gone out, would write a chit, leave it for us and go, or best is we do WhatsApp or messaging. But those days all this technology was not there. So what they did is rock painting. Our temples which we go, our historical temples, we see many such things. And this has actually helped us in increasing the way of communication, the mode of communication with the time that we went on. Later this was the ancient early time of this thing. So when we are talking about after drums, we had this, the Pony Express and rock painting. And I am sure you people have all understood, and this paintings had actually, the rock painting which we are talking about, helped us in understanding the culture of the people very well. What type of people were they? What was their culture? What was their methodology that they followed? Today when we talk about the communication part, it has increased a lot. Now today it's not only the verbal communication or the body language. Today we have even lot of technology which has improved. We have various mode of communicating. Might be even today, scientists are working on communicating from one planet to another. That is through the mode of satellites. So how, 10,000 BC, when we are talking about 1000 BC, and today's 2022 when we are talking, fine, we have again increased our mode of communication. Earlier when we were, I think we had postal way of communication, then the couriers started, so it was a bit faster, and telegram, all those methods, postal like letter writing and posting, that was a mode of communication. Then later like now people, I think they don't write letters and this thing, that much time I think people don't invest. Whatever it is, mailing it helps. Mail it, whatever, immediately the person can check it, see it. WhatsApp or various other tools have come. Technology is increasing day by day, and that is how might be our life, our communication is becoming more wider and easier. So it's like today, even if we don't speak, we can communicate. That's the best thing. Earlier, like even that time when they could not speak, they did. One more thing I would like to highlight, it's not only that communication is through words or like body, like not only through words in this thing. There is communication even between animals and us. Even animals communicate. Again, the way of communication is different and the way of understanding is different. Fine. When animals are communicating, even they understand each other's language. They have a different language. And even when we humans have animals with us, we are understanding their language. So again, we are understanding them because of the communication, our style of communication, our way of communication. Fine. And again, like when we are talking about, like earlier days, even today, the sign language, the dumb, deaf and all, they too communicate. Blind, they too communicate. But blind have their communication through the braille script which they follow, and deaf and dumb, they have their sign language, their body language, they mimic to us through signs. So again, these are all the various ways of communication which we are having and we are following it. Fine. Now when we are proceeding further, when you are looking into the features of successful communication. Features of successful communication. Communication plays vital role in our day-to-day activity. I hope everyone agrees to it. Without communication, I think our day-to-day activity is on pause, on hold. We cannot work it out. So, our day-to-day activity is simpler and easier with the communication. And today, as we have ample of ways of communication, easier ways of communication, life has become more easier. But again, let's look into the features. Now when we are talking, communication is organization and it makes communication easier. How? When we are talking about, suppose even today the whole college, for students, so and so date examinations are starting, colleges are reopening, so many students, but one by one we cannot go to everyone's place and pass the communication, we cannot write letter to all and pass communication. In the latest technology, to all the individuals in the college, the students and the faculties, how would we inform? One message in the group, WhatsApp, it's all done, everyone knows that so and so date the college is reopening. So again, it helps the organization in a easier communication, making their life easy. So again, it's a two-way communication that yes, it is a continuous meaningful interaction. Guys, it's a continuous meaningful interaction. What does that mean is, suppose if we have started the class today, fine. After starting the class today, further I don't even explain you further things. So do you think you will understand what is the further chapter? How would it go? No. The continuity, the flow has to go on. The same way, suppose you are given an assignment, you are working on something, you have started it, but then no one knows what's further developments on those. How would one give the development? Again, we have to regularly be communicating on that, mailing it or messaging it or writing it on it. So it's a continuous process. It has to go on. Only then that it's a healthier communication. Plus, one more way I would say is, to a friend or relative or colleague, you are communicating and suddenly you don't communicate. So do you know what is happening? No, you don't know. You have to be in touch with someone, again continuously communicate, to keep in touch with the person for what is happening, how is what. To suppose even if we are communicating to a different country person, to know, to study their culture or what is happening, to any latest developments. So we have to continuously have the flow so that we understand it. So communication is a continuous process. If half left, it's half information. And again, as you know, great philosophers and our seniors have told us that half knowledge is and half information is dangerous. So the continuous process has to go on for a happier and a healthier flow. Fine. Next, in this complete communication process, there are two people, both have to be active, timely, and they have to communicate with each other on time to time basis, on proper time, so that any information is not half done or not reached on a proper time. So to keep a proper communication in a proper time, we need to have receiver and sender active on timely basis. Fine. Then we have transmits and disseminates ideas, thoughts, feelings, plans. Fine. And their execution, etc., even is being done. And this is again the way of communication. We are executing a plan, we are designing it accordingly. I would say is the minutes of the meeting planned, and then accordingly you communicate to people, and that is how then the things working it out. So we are transmitting it, we are planning it, we are executing it. Fine. So the whole planning again has to be into a proper communication. Even this is a part of communication. Transmitting your ideas, your thoughts in a proper manner and getting it executed in a proper manner. That is again very, very important. Otherwise, the communication is not done properly, because the transmission was not proper, the execution was not proper, the receivance was not proper. So then in that case, we would say communication is half done. There is lack of communication. So when we are transmitting some ideas, executing some ideas, presenting some ideas, the communication has to be in a proper manner. Only then that it is a proper execution of ideas. Fine. Then again, when we are talking about communication, communication skills are said to be and persuasion of written and this thing, spoken and written, the non-verbal features. So these features are very important when we are talking about communication part. Verbal and non-verbal communication. We will study in detail about the non-verbal and the verbal communication. Fine. So, verbal communication is speech, speaking it, writing it, words which are expressing it. Those are the verbal communication. Non-verbal is our action, our sign language, our body language, our eye contact, our gestures, even as way of dressing, everything comes into the non-verbal communication, and those speaks a lot about the person and the personality. Fine. So further when we are going into, we would further look after. So next class we would be studying about a verbal and non-verbal communication in details with the 7 C's of communication, which are again very, very important. When we are talking about the 7 C's of communication, this would actually help you in better communication further, and what are the ways that we need to work and polish ourselves for communication. Fine guys, so I would look forward to you people in our next class. We would study further for this. Thank you and have a great day.